I've been told that people seem to think that I love to hear myself talk. And it is very true. I do love to hear myself talk. They'll never get me to admit it, but I do love it. I haven't watched Sydney in a while, so let's see what Sydney has to say about GTA. Interesting that she's talking about a video game related topic. She doesn't normally, at least as far as I'm aware, talk a lot about gaming news. But when she does, it's interesting, I think, especially because I don't know if she's a huge gamer or a small gamer or what have you. But let's see what she has to say about GTA. I've never played a GTA game, by the way.
If there's one thing we've all gotten
I know,
used to
shock and
in
awe.
modernity, it's being disappointed by entertainment.
Yes. 100% all the time. At least modern entertainment.
Welcome back to hell. Quick reminder, once again, the 20% off sale on my tea website, which is linked in the description box, will be ending in a couple days.
Yum yum.
That discount is automatically applied at checkout, so no code needed, and it applies to
that's
my
nice.
winter flavors that are left over, so my bourbon barrel chai and my apple cider. I have very few
apple cider tea sounds actually really good.
It also applies to lemon ginseng as well as my summer flavors.
Ooh, you had me at the lemon, but I think you lost me at the ginseng.
And strawberry lemonade oolong. I will link it in the description box. Okay.
I don't think I'm a fan of the flavor of ginseng.
If you read the title
Not sure though. I don't remember too well.
Here comes Sydney to stomp on all my dreams. I just want to be super clear about the fact that I will be doing no stumping, but I will be doing some reality checking. And I'm sorry if that makes you cry. Now, regrettably, all of us know that many games that have come down the pipeline over the last number of years have sucked for one reason or another.
Yes, and they're all in a specific and particular direction that has nothing to do with anything that would be coming from AAA, right? Strange how that pattern works.
But those that have sucked the absolute most all have seemingly followed the same trajectory. They began with a great idea or a great addition to a franchise, and then they regrettably were injected with a bunch of random progressivism that makes no sense, that nobody asked for, and is deeply unpleasant.
I don't even know if you can really, pin it specifically on progressivism, because I don't think gamers care that much about it being progressive or anything like that. They care about it being a bad game and feeling like a sermon rather than it being a game on its own merits. So I think that it might be a bit... is derivative the right word here? It might be derivative of the... I was about to check to see if it was, but I'm just going to use the word. I think it might be a bit derivative as an argument to say that it boils down to only progressivism.
You just know that this is a self.
Yeah, this was such a terrible cutscene.
Like, you know what? I want to breathe fire. Seems a little bit like gaming studios have taken a leaf out of Hollywood's book, listening to the most radical in the writer's room and pissing off your entire fan base. Beautiful work. But when it comes to GTA 6 or Grand Theft Auto 6, for those of you who live in a pineapple under the sea, there is so much trepidation about what this game will be or won't be, given it is probably one of the most anticipated AAA games of the last decade. I mean, waiting for this game to drop is so ingrained in internet culture that jokes about getting something unexpected before GTA 6 are made all of the time. We got trend.
So a lot of people are also, at least a lot of people who pay attention to these types of issues is the wrong word. These types of stories, a lot of them are worried because there were a lot of shakeups at the Rockstar staff, where they were bringing on a lot of industries, or rather a lot of industry professionals that were indicative of a direction that it was heading. I mean, I think they brought in a company much like Sweet Baby. I know we all know that there was a huge controversy about that. Some of the people who are working on it have been very vocal on Twitter, as far as I am aware. And it's all been pointing in a direction. Now, does that mean the game's going to be bad? No. But human beings are creatures of pattern recognition, and there is certainly a pattern that is being recognized.
Furry members of Congress before we got GTA 6. And it's not super surprising that this is the case. the jokes, not the transferring congressman. GTA 6's predecessors have done exceptionally well, and they're very influential on a cultural level. And
That's
Rockstar
true.
Games have now spent years working on this newest game, costing them anywhere between $1 billion to $2 billion.
That's an insane budget, by the way. That is an insane budget.
Billion. With a B. So it's safe to say that a lot is riding on its reception being good and people enjoying it. But
Yep.
now that the game's release has been pushed back over and over and over again, people are starting to wonder why. Well, they've been wondering why for a little while, but you know what I mean. And
It does sound like it's indicative of a troubled development, unfortunately.
like so many of you, I think this is because Rockstar filled this game with progressive nonsense that they're now trying to rapidly, frantically backtrack.
Yep, that's what a lot of people, like, that's their tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. I mean, you know, obviously it's maybe a little bit more solid than a tinfoil hat, but a lot of people are saying that, or at least I've heard a lot of people expressing that concern. And I don't know if it's well-founded or not. Honestly, I'd like to be a fly on the wall in Rockstar's development studio to see what decisions were being made, who was being pushed aside as a developer, and what content's being cut or reworked. I'd be honestly curious.
And it's not really hard to arrive at this conclusion considering that the game's development kicked off in earnest around 2018/2019 during
Yep.
the peak and stranglehold period of the woke cultural movement.
Mhm.
And since then, we know that the company has tangoed with DEI training,
And it's crashed.
sensitivity mandates, trans sensitivity mandates, asked for toned down minority jokes, and edited out offensive parts of their games retroactively.
Yeah, they edited a bunch of like stuff from GTA San Andreas, right? Like they covered up a bunch of like edgy jokes, I think, which a lot of people were like, "What the hell, man?"
I think it's entirely plausible that Rockstar watched a bunch of other games get smacked down for their overt leftism
Yep.
and progressivism and simply didn't want to be another casualty.
Yep,
And thus
yep.
began the rewrites and the reworks and the delays. Gamers
I think I think you can make a good argument in that direction, but unfortunately, we're never going to know. I don't think you can ever make a definitive judgment on that. But circumstantially, you can make somewhat of an assessment of that.
have rejected woke titles.
By the way, you know, huge title, by the way.
En masse, tanking multi-$100 million
Another huge
projects
title, by the
left and
way.
right. With GTA 6's
Another huge title, by the way.
stakes, Rockstar really can't afford to join them. Of course, Rockstar
And the worst part about it is the games themselves didn't have a problem with them being progressive, so to speak. The problem was they were all just bad games.
hasn't and won't confirm this because why would they? But I do think that they
Like I said, I'm not going to make any apologies for the progressive movement because I don't believe in the progressive movement. I don't ascribe to it. Like it's not my thing. And honestly, I think some of the tactics that they employ are a little underhanded, to say the least. However, I also live in reality land where the games are just bad and it's got nothing to do with the progressive politics in the game.
enough evidence here to paint a pretty compelling picture of what is going on. So call me Picasso because I'm gonna be doing that painting. It's worth understanding that GTA
Good one.
6's full production reportedly really only ramped up once Red Dead Redemption 2 was finished, which was in 2018. Now, I think this is very interesting because this is undoubtedly during the tail end of the Me Too movement and the rise of cultural zealotry, so to speak, with endless corporate DEI training and studios bending over backwards to make sure that they tick that representation box. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about.
Thanks to
I do. I lived it.
Tosh.
That's why we recruited her.
Where I wasn't playing a game, I was playing a sermon.
Actually, Tosh uses them for themselves now.
What the hell is even that?
Because games are in production for so long, and because studios don't exactly have a crystal ball to look into and determine what's going to happen in the future, I have to imagine that they are taking cues about what is relevant and culturally interesting based on what is happening around them. Which, like, yeah, of course, Sydney, that's so obvious. And at the time that this game went into production, being woke was cool and hip. And
No, I don't believe that to be the case. It's what all the companies did because they were afraid of getting shouted at online. Which now there is a big counter shout to that. I think that maybe there was a bit of a cause and effect relationship there, but that's regardless.
Absolutely not something associated with weirdos on TikTok who have 9,000 facial piercings and blue hair. At the time too,
Oof.
WordPress hadn't really
Called
hit
out.
the gaming world in the same way that it has now, but it was pretty clear that a lot of those games were already in production and would torture us in the next couple years. But you want to know what I wish was in production at the time due to how
Good games?
completely awesome and useful it is?
Good games?
Clip, the sponsor
No.
of today's video, and you better watch the ad or I will cry. I have to confess something to all of you. I freaking hate making short form videos. It's time consuming. I hate things being in portrait mode. But here's the problem. People seem
I think
to
I tend to
like
agree with that,
luxury
honestly.
videos, and social media platforms seem to
Love them too.
prioritize them.
Yep.
So this reality has been very disappointing for me. But just when I thought that all hope was lost and I probably would have to spend hours upon hours upon hours editing short form content for social media, a company reached out to me called
Well, you
Opus
also have to
and they
tailor
said
your
they wanted
content to
sponsor
short-term
the
clips
channel.
too, right?
And then
So
I
you have to
used
like be a
Opus
clip,
and
like
completely fell
make
in love
yourself
with it
a
and have
clip
now
farmer,
forced
so to
all my
speak.
friends to use it. Opus Clip has legitimately, hand on heart, been a complete game changer for somebody like me because their platform is more or less a one-stop shop for creators. And like I told you all last time, I liked this product so much that I went ahead and paid for it to support them.
I don't know, I've never
even though
tried
they
it.
offered to give me a free trial. Because of Opus Clip, and I have exclusively used them to do this, I have gone ahead and been able to create a Sydney Watson Clips channel here on YouTube. Because Opus Clip makes shorts insanely easy to produce. I drop my long form videos into Opus Clip, I select the length of the video that I want to create, and Opus Clip uses its AI to cut my clips, resize them to portrait mode, caption
I don't know
them,
how I
and then
feel
gives me
about
ratings
uploading
on
my
each
videos
show
to
which
like a
have the
a
best video
website.
looks, which are the clearest, and which could go
I don't
viral.
know.
I am not exaggerating when I say that the Opus Clip team have basically thought of everything that you could really possibly do to your videos to make this experience as easy and
I really
as
don't want to
idiot
try it
as
because,
possible.
you know,
But I also love that they have this scheduling option, which again is
it's kind of got like an
incredibly
AI
easy
thing to it,
use
but
and just cuts out
I've been
so
seeing some
much time and
advertisements for
noodling
this, and
around
I don't
trying to
know.
get videos posted. So if you two
I don't know
are finally
how.
ready to try out one of the
I don't know how
pieces of
willing
AI
I'd be to
software
try
that
that.
I've ever used and one of the most useful
Could be
pieces
interesting.
of
I don't
AI
know.
that I've ever used, then click the link in the description to enjoy 1 week of Opus Clip for free plus 50%
I
off for
definitely
the
don't
next
want
3
to start
months.
paying for something. I'm going to be honest.
Context, in 2018, the games that got a lot of flack were Battleground 5, which was criticized for its inclusion
Yeah.
of women in a World War II setting.
This was crazy, by the way, that there was any argument like to be had here.
The game's former executive producer, Patrick
Like, cause like on the one hand, it doesn't matter because like it's like it's a representation of what was happening. If you wanted to have women in your game, you can have women in your game. It doesn't matter. But you can't then and say that it's a historically accurate game if it does, because it's just not historically accurate, especially on the Eastern Front where Western Front, where a lot of the action happened. On the Eastern Front, maybe, but most certainly not with hands missing or legs missing.
Sunderland, probably saying that wrong, told players not to buy the game if they disagreed with the
Well, they
creative
didn't.
liberties that were taken, and the player drop-off that followed was pretty significant.
Imagine.
The other notable game was 2018's State of Decay 2, which also faced criticism around its lack of white characters and its forced diversity. And sure, complaints about these two games were there, but they likely weren't even a blip on Rockstar's radar. I had a very hard time collecting footage for you guys of this game because of my crippling fear of zombies. So
Oh no.
I suffer for my art. What can I say? I'm actually deeply curious about
Have I
what
played
makes
State of
people
Decay
want
2? I think I've played State of Decay 2. Let me see. I don't remember. That should tell you how much I have. I've played State of Decay 2. It didn't stick with me. It wasn't that good. It was okay for a couple of hours, but after that it just got boring, monotonous, and repetitive.
zombie games because they're so creepy. They're so creepy from top to bottom. What is wrong with
Sure.
you guys? But 2022 through 2024 really crystallized.
Oh, that's
just
where we
how
got
bad a
our
woke game
our
would be
great
received, with
launches.
failures happening
Oh,
across the
man.
board. And as time wore on, gamers were getting angrier and angrier every time a game was released that was full of progressivism that nobody asked for. It was
Again, it's not that it was full of progressivism. It was that it was written by people who don't know how to write or make games. And they had an overwhelming bent towards a particular political ideology, or a lot more accepting of
It
it.
was also around 2024 that people realized outfits like Sweet
'Cause,
Baby
like,
Inc.
I don't think that anybody can really make the argument that if a good game had and a legitimate good game had progressive leaning values, that it wouldn't succeed. Because I think a good game is a good game and it stands on itself. Again, I think the overwhelming problem is the types of games that these people make are absolutely overwhelmingly shit.
had played a very heavy role in wokeifying their favorite franchises.
Yep.
And it became clear that studios were outsourcing their inclusivity agendas to firms that would make sure they were
Another
using
reason
all
why it's bad is because this eats up development time as well. That's another reason why if you start pushing this stuff in your game and you want to start putting more of it in there and you start paying for trainings, you eat up a development time that could be spent making the game better in order to serve whatever this is.
appropriate notes in woke culture. Be that female representation, the inclusion of LGBTQ+ initiatives and characters and storylines, having enough diverse characters, you know, typical stuff. My understanding here too is that some of these firms, even
Also, I think it's very racist to be looking at it as saying you don't have enough of this type of person in your game, you need to put this type of person in your game, otherwise you are racist. Well, if you don't put that type of person in your game and you never even thought about it in like a type of racist way, calling attention to it is itself the primordial form of racism, in my opinion.
participated in partial rewrites or suggesting like storylines for games and then making sure that those storylines and those plot points were carried out, which is just like, ugh. It is not a good idea to hand your multi-million-dollar projects over to people who don't know what their gender is. 2024 especially
Again,
saw games
or don't
like
know how to
Concord,
play
Dustborn,
make a
and
game.
Suicide Squad getting absolutely destroyed online for their overt and annoying political messaging.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, and I guess kind of sort of hilariously, games like
I definitely think that is also a writing issue, because if you have to preach to somebody, you've already ran into a writing issue. A better way to do it is we can look at a really politically charged game that was actually well received and had somewhat of a critique of capitalism in it, of BioShock, the original BioShock. I am going to go out on a limb and say you will find absolutely nobody that will criticize BioShock on its political messaging, because it's not overt and it's not in your face. It adheres to the good writing motif of show don't tell. And even if I don't agree with some of the conclusions that BioShock comes to, but BioShock is overwhelmingly a good game. And it's not because of its political messaging, it's because it's well written.
Hogwarts Legacy, which was released in 2023, did exceptionally well despite intense leftist backlash.
Yep, that's
because of
true.
its relationship to J.K.
In fact, I
Rowling.
bet you the leftist backlash actually made this game even better, or sell more, rather.
Okay. It was around this time
I don't
that
think,
alarm-
honestly, I don't think the game was like that. Like, I think it was a little bit more monotonous with the way that with the way that its open world was. I don't like big games like that where there's, you know, a lot to do, but nothing really of substance to do. So I might not have been the target demographic for that game. But I think the core gameplay was good and the core story was satisfactory for a Harry Potter fan. I'm not an overwhelming Harry Potter fan. Like, I watched the movies when I was a kid, read the books when I was a kid. Can't say that it's for me all the time. But if you're a Harry Potter fan, it's perfect for you. But at the same time, like I said, it was made by at least seemingly a competent studio with competent people, even though there were some characters in the game that ticked some of the boxes and you could tell who they were.
Alarm bells started to ring for people around Rockstar and the creation of GTA 6. Because no, We can never have nice things.
Mhm.
In late 2024, Bloomberg News wrote a few sentences that amounted to little more than a footnote in a full article, but sent people absolutely spinning out. The outlet reported that GTA 6 would star 2 playable characters inspired by Bonnie and Clyde,
Okay.
and Rockstar had reportedly asked its writers to be less crude towards transgender people and other minorities.
All right, so Rockstar asking its writers to be less crude towards protected classes. You already know that that is not what Rockstar does. They make edgy jokes. And to not allow the studio that used to make edgy jokes to continue to make edgy jokes, you're losing something of substance from the studio.
Who it
Imagine.
describes as common targets of throwaway gags in previous versions. Understandably, considering everything that we know about the industry and entertainment,
So you can't
this
joke about
alarmed
these
some
people.
given that the GTA franchise to date
Imagine.
essentially roasted absolutely everyone.
Yep.
And the point of the games was sort of to be this irreverent satire about American life and crime in big cities. That said, this leak at the time about Rockstar's instruction
I think she just said an important word, satire. Satire is now a meaningless word.
to its writers wasn't terribly surprising, considering that in 2022, the company censored content in Grand Theft Auto V Expanded and Enhanced Edition. In this version of the game, they removed elements that might have seemed to target members of the Q+ community, such as caricatured NPCs and in-game signs referencing drag performers. They also edited out dialogue that was perceived as mocking these types of people too.
So you
just
can't
know
mock
this
them.
decision was made
Got it.
because somebody with a septum piercing was bitching behind the scenes at Rockstar. Now that I'm thinking about it, it was probably a gaggle of them. Considering this happened in
I honestly couldn't stand it if somebody was being told they could not make a joke at my expense. Because that's just not how anything should work. Like, oh my god. That is so patronizing.
2022, which was almost, I would say, the peak of the woke insanity. You just know that this decision was seal clapped by a bunch of people who've never even played the game.
Well, you are what you
Really,
hire, I
this kind of
guess.
decision sort of flies in the face of what GTA is all about, which is basically being an equal opportunist as far as offending people and making jokes about people.
Yep,
And
which is what
taking
you should
stabs at
be.
people. Pun not intended. So, of course, this decision raised a lot of eyebrows, and also set a weird stage for what was to come. Why was the studio choosing to protect only certain kinds of people? It might have something to do with certificates
Because it's
being
politically
awarded to
palatable.
particularly senior employees at Rockstar between 2020 and 2021. According to the outlet, That Park Place, at least 60 Rockstar employees completed a course around the time called Unconscious Bias. The Unconscious Bias certification
God.
is designed to teach participants to recognize and address unconscious prejudices that they might have.
I am so glad I never had to take any of these courses. These courses just seem like brainwashing.
The training reportedly focuses heavily on race-based and gender dynamics. It also apparently frames bias.
Like, I happen to be somebody who remembers the 90s. And you want to know why the 90s functioned as it did and it was such a good time to live? Because nobody was forced to have to think about these things all the time, 100% of the time. Because, surprise amongst surprise, when you're not forced to think about these things, you treat everybody generally as equals. Wow.
Is something that predominantly privileged groups, like white employees, need to address. Another certification obtained by
Also, it kind of drives a division between people if you really sit down and think about the logical consequence of it. Because now you're making a distinction of people who would share a similar common identity, saying they don't share a common identity with you. Good example. You go into a company, you're working at a company. Say you hire like 4 people, and then somebody comes in and gives you this unconscious bias training. They tell you, oh, you hired X amount of these types of people, X amount of these types of people, which is out of line of what we would expect a non-racist, quote, person to do. You are unconsciously biasing towards people who look like you. They're different than you. You have to hire them. Okay, now we've gone from I'm hiring another American, maybe another member of my community, to now I have to hire somebody who looks different than me, who now has a completely different identity structure foreseeably from me. That in no way can cause no harm at all. Like, imagine how that works.
Rockstar employees is one called Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging. Oh, how nice. Sounds
What a flowery
completely
title.
Innocuous. Wow. Anyway, this was another thing that Park Place writes is even more widely distributed than the former course. This course also aims to promote inclusivity by fostering awareness and respect for diversity. Combine all of this as well with the fact that a major player at the company, Dan Hauser, left in 2020.
That's sad that he left.
For those who don't know, Hauser was one of the company's co-founders alongside his brother Sam and several other notable men who I'm not going to list because that'll
Once the founders start jumping ship, you know you've got a problem.
take too long. It was reported in late 2025 that he left due to disagreements with his brother about creative direction. 3 years later, in 2023,
And his brother
another
left.
key player at the company, Michael Unsworth, also left.
Oh, never. He
Unsworth
didn't.
was a primary player behind GTA 4 and GTA 5. I mean, they all were primary players behind the GTA games, but you get what I'm saying. So essentially, you have a situation where the original writers of the GTA games are no longer at the company.
Okay, so you've got a lot of people who made the GTA games what they were going. Man, to be a fly on the wall.
As is their choice, and they have presumably been replaced.
I think we all
with
know
people
why they
who
left.
do inclusion certificates on LinkedIn. People
Imagine.
leave companies all of the time for all sorts of reasons, so maybe there's nothing to this, but I can see why a lot of people find it reasonably suspect that two major players left the company during the production of a major game's development. Whether that had to do with the company aggressively changing direction or veering too far down the road of progressivism, we don't know, and we will probably never know, but I do think it signals that something is probably wrong. One last thing that I want to point out here is something that a YouTuber called Andy Pants Gaming pointed out in a recent video.
Oh, we're gonna talk about Andy Pants now. I remember there was a huge fight between him and the Act Man. I don't remember a lot of what was happening. All I remember is I was listening to it. I was hearing my brain leak from my ear. Like, I'm sure both of them probably had good points on both sides, but I was like, guys, they both didn't want to recognize reality, at least as far as I can see it, for what it was.
And again, this largely refers to things that Rockstar added and changed previously in release games, if that makes sense. Andy highlights that every online update since 2020 has produced characters that are soft, weak, and politically correct. Although, you know, he says this a little bit differently to me. He does so by comparing characters from previous games who are actually flawed, but reflect people who probably would exist in real life, people that we would probably know and meet and run into. He compares these characters to the new characters in the online updates who
I don't know, like I said, I don't know if we can show that progressivism from this is bad in the game. I think that just shows the quality of the game is going down because the people who are writing it don't know how to make a game.
are pathetic and poorly written. He shows
So
us
they're-
three
they're-
primary
they're lying
examples
back
that I'm
on
gonna show you
what
two,
they
and one
know.
of them comes from GTA LS Tuners, where characters actually talk about being inclusive.
I mean, if that's true, then that's
what
weird.
This place is all about. Be who you wanna be. Tuner, modder, stock car racer, obnoxious as a motherfucker. Express yourself.
Bro, in San Andreas, you were killed for being in the wrong gang. Now GTA is like, it's 2025, man, let's be inclusive.
He also highlights another character called Dax and his group, the Fooligans, which is quite honestly one of the gayest things I've ever heard in my life. Gay is in the 90s version, not the homosexual version.
Imagine using a 90s colloquialism. Nowadays, you'd get canceled so fast.
But that probably counts as well. Anyway, these guys were introduced in an update in 2022 or 2023. Andy describes Dax as sanitized rather than making him a real character that is actually crazy. He's more of a Seth Rogen, look how edgy I am kind of person. I am annoyed because I went and watched all of the cutscenes of this Dax character person after I watched Andy's video, and I'm just annoyed now because I can't unsee the observations that he made about this. Like, why are you this way? This is why we can't have nice things.
Show me your butthole, fella!
Yeah, that's kind of cringe.
Fresh Precious Metasaurus! Precious Metasaurus!
Andy makes a bunch of other really good points, and I actually really liked this video, so I'm going to link it in the description box, and I think it paints a pretty good picture, or at least it makes a pretty good and compelling argument about why GTA 6 probably has horrendous writers working on it, which in turn means that the game itself is probably not going to have very good characters. But I will link it for you in the
I don't know.
description box.
Maybe.
You can watch it in your own time. But putting all of
Could be a good argument. Like I said, I tend not to watch Andy Pants because from what I remember, he's fairly aggressive with the stances that he takes, which is, if that's your content, that's your content. Go for it. Not for me. Because I think that there's a better way of diagnosing these problems outside of just calling something some type of pejorative. And I think that there's room for nuance. I don't know. That's kind of like my opinion on that. But I do think that maybe he might be right. He might be right. I don't know.
this together, and honestly, to reiterate the primary point that Andy is making here in his video, even without the woke backdrop, so let's just take that out of the equation for a second,
Sure.
and the DEI certificates and the leaks about going easy on certain groups and the editing out of offensive material, and this game beginning production as progressive wokeism took hold, the bottom line is that the primary writers who brought GTA to life are all gone. And now it's unlikely that...
And how likely is it that they're going to be able to maintain the cadence of a Rockstar game in the future? Very unlikely.
Those who have replaced them know how to capture the heart and spirit of what GTA is.
Yeah, those who replaced them are not spiritual successors. Those who replaced them are very, very and overwhelmingly proven to be non-industry outsiders, which is a little worrying,
as demonstrated by the characters GTA has dropped in the last number of years. So, because I'm a negative Nancy, along with Andy Pants Gaming, apparently, I do think that there is a high probability that this game would be chock full of unlikable characters and side characters.
My official prediction, it's going to sell really well, because this is a GTA game. It's going to sell well. That's just how it is. People are going to get their hands on it. They're going to play it for 4 or 5 hours. They're going to step away from it and say, why did I buy this? That's what I think is going to happen. It's going to be unfortunate, but I think that's what's probably going to happen, because most people who buy buy the game when it comes out, like the game as in title, the game, not like a game. They're not plugged into the community. They don't really care. They don't bother to look anything up beforehand. They already know they're going to buy it in the first place. Then when they come back to it, or when they play it, they're going to be like, oh, this sucks. And then they're never going to buy another one of those games again, because they're always going to be judging it based on the experience they had with the previous title when they played it.
And missions that are probably not great.
And I would hate to see that, but I think that's probably what's going to happen. Hate to see that it dies, rather.
So with this in mind, why do I think they decided to stop what they were doing and potentially reroute and try to rewrite some of this game? And is there any proof of that? Well, no, it's not as if somebody at Rockstar is going to come out and say, hey, we added too much pride and too many transgender people to the game who you're not allowed to kill, and who have plot armor, and now we've decided that that's antithetical to what we're all about, and we've changed it. But once again, I do think that there is a little bit of evidence.
I'm going to bet you that somebody probably will come out after the game releases.
That we can put together to...
That's usually how it works.
...of at least some of what's gone on here. First and foremost, like I mentioned before, 2023...
By the way, Baldur's Gate, it did have a lot of progressive values in it, in the sense that it was inclusive. You could make whatever type of character that you wanted. You could have whatever type of relationship that you wanted for the most part. But nobody cared about it. Why? Because it was well written and because it was a good game. Kind of funny how that works, right?
2024 really signaled the downfall of woke studios that themselves didn't have time to course correct, who couldn't gaze into their own...
To be fair, a lot of people didn't like the fact that there was a lot of progressive stuff in it. However, they still played the game, still bought the game, and still can say at the end of the day, regardless of what's in it, it was a good game.
and see just how sick of all of this we would get. Massive failures like Forspoken, Star Wars Outlaws, Dragon Age Veilguard, Assassin's Creed Shadows, and even the hate directed towards Ghost of Yotei just for casting an extremely loud progressive woman as the protagonist's voice actress.
It wasn't that they cast a loud progressive woman. They cast somebody who was definitely a political radical who was willing to say some fairly bad things about people. Because as far as I recall, I think she did openly, or at least obviously she's going to fall behind the veil of hyperbole, but she did call for certain people to be harmed if they disagreed with her, as far as I am aware. I might be misremembering it, but she said some really inflammatory things.
These events,
and I think justifiably you can be mad at that, because you shouldn't be doing that on a professional setting. Like, when you're a public figure, there is a degree of leeway to that, of course, but you shouldn't be, in a way, calling for violence upon people in general.
Demonstrated that the writing was absolutely on the wall. And gamers have been very loud about what they want and don't want in games. Boobs. You guys want boobs.
Yes.
And I want more Daddy Kratos. But I couldn't even have that.
I can accept that.
Sweet Baby Inc. worked on God of War Ragnarok and made him a sweet, loving man that he definitely is not. Why did you ruin him? I will never forgive
Can't speak that out. Never played a God of War game. Imagine.
you. If Rockstar was paying attention to all of this, like I assume they probably were, they probably looked at their multi-billion-dollar project and thought, maybe we've made a mistake. With the massive changes in
They
the
could have,
cultural landscape
maybe.
unfolding, several major studios have already told us that they're pulling back from progressivism in their media, notably
If only they had listened to people before they lost all their money for that.
Disney. It's also worth remembering that GTA 6's original release was slated for autumn 2025. And interestingly, in May 2025, Take-Two, Rockstar's parent company and the actual publisher of GTA, deleted references to diversity and inclusion in its annual report to investors. It also reportedly moved from its list of employment awards that it mentions each year to accolades that refer to its support for LGBT employees. This is a very stark difference to the same report from 2024, where Take-Two leaned heavily into its emphasis on DEI within the company. But
honestly, if we completely eradicate this from every industry, I think that'll be a net win. Mostly because, again, I think this fosters more resentment than it does inclusivity or whatever they're fighting for. And because I think all these types of organizations that try to, quote, fight, end quote, for that, also probably are predating upon people's goodwill in order to gain a quick buck.
no more! Again, I know this is not a smoking gun, but it is something. And I do think that it is following a trajectory that other studios and entertainment outfits are on currently, which is that
people are
what
done hearing
doesn't
about
really
it.
sell? And people do not want to be pandered to. One of the other things that I'm
including people
absolutely certain
inside of
you
that
have seen at
community
this
that you're
point are
pandering
the
to.
GTA trailers themselves. The second trailer, which we will discuss very soon, was actually released shortly after Take-Two's annual report. And this second trailer has a very different vibe to the first, according to a lot of people. Personally, I think they're pretty similar, but that's just me. The first trailer Rockstar released came out in December 2023, and it heavily featured the game's female protagonist, Lucia? I would say this Lucia. I don't know. I'm sorry. Like I mentioned earlier, they're going for a Bonnie and Clyde thing, which I think is pretty cool. Now, on its own, some people get mad anytime they see a female lead in any game, and I honestly think that's pretty stupid. Women don't equal...
I agree with that. I think a lot of people who see female leads get unnecessarily upset. Again, though, we have to talk about context. I think that they either justifiably or unjustifiably, it doesn't matter at this point, they see a female lead and they immediately think this is going to suck because the people who are making it are bad writers, probably part of the progressive cartel, and it's going to suck because they're just bad at writing. Whether or not that's true or not, it doesn't matter. That's what they are seeing. We're articulating a point from somebody else, whether or not it is or is not our point. And I think we can understand that that is what they're seeing. The only way to fight against that is to make good games that feature female leads.
Woke, especially in this context, and I think having a Bonnie and Clyde situation for a game like this actually makes a lot of sense and kind of makes it dynamic. I
Yes,
also think that OG
I agree.
gamers know that a female lead isn't an issue. Some of the
Yes,
most beloved
I
gaming
agree.
classics include female protagonists. like
100%.
Tomb Raider, Metroid, Perfect Dark, just to name a few. This also isn't new, given that Dan Houser said back in the early 2010s that he would be happy to have a female lead in the game if it ever called for it. But really, this didn't stop plenty of people speculating that GTA 6 would be woke and shitty based solely on this minute and 30 seconds.
They're looking at that going, it's funny how it's happening right now.
What is interesting, however, my little chickadees, is that upon releasing their second teaser trailer, Lucia doesn't even show up for the first half of it. And the trailer fixates on the game's male lead, Jason, which I can actually pronounce. That's an easy name. This might have been the plan all along, show one then the other, or as people have speculated online, maybe Rockstar saw the response and the hypersensitivity to potentially something overtly leftist and decided to take things in a different direction. Or maybe the whole thing is a giant bait and switch. Who is to say? But
Who
again,
knows?
I view these trailers as
It's
a
not
little
out
bit
yet.
of an opportunity for Rockstar to see how people are interpreting and receiving what they're putting out. And whether it's related or not, Rockstar inevitably puts
Again, I don't think it matters who they show. I think they're going to sell regardless. So honestly, these trailers probably didn't matter in the long run because it's already it's like a staple brand essentially. People are going to buy the game to buy the game. They've already made their decision on whether or not they are or are not going to buy it.
the GTA 6 release date to May.
So I don't even think the
2026
trailers really
and
matter that
to
much.
November 2026, which is still
So
not 100%.
it was probably already
The
planned too,
excuse
what was
for
happening
this
in that
time
trailer.
Is that they want to do a little bit of polishing, do a little bit of a polish. They want to make sure that the game is up to snuff, which I don't really buy. For me, though, one of the most interesting things that I think backs up this rewrite, get rid of the woke, fix the game before it blows up position is an interview given by gaming journalist Jason Schreier. Why am I so bad at names? Schreier acknowledged in an interview about a month ago that the content for the game was absolutely not finished, and he described it as not content complete.
Of course, consider the source.
He explained that content complete can mean all sorts of things, and it is nuanced, but didn't exactly explain what he meant by this. Some people interpreted his comments to mean that Rockstar was still actively building out core missions and side missions, which, if true, is not exactly what polishing a game looks like.
I will say that there is a good chance that he's right about this, only insofar as games nowadays release very close to the date of completion because they work right up until the very end, and generally speaking, when they do release, there's a lot of hot fixes to fix the bugs that they couldn't get during their development cycle. So it's possible they're going to be working right up to it until the bell and they just didn't finish. But it's also possible they had to rewrite a bunch.
That sounds like rewrite territory to me. But the fact is, we have actually seen, even recently, other content, like movies and games, get pushed back for rewrites.
We have been seeing
this
that.
happened recently with the 2025 Snow White and with Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I'm sure
Didn't
it's
push it
happened
back
others,
far
but
enough.
I honestly just can't think of them right now. I have done a lot of talking, so let me just summarize the bottom line here, which is that basically, Rockstar have probably followed in the footsteps of a lot of other video game studios over the last number of years.
Yep.
I think that much is pretty obvious. But with so much writing on this game, with all the money that's gone into it, and the time and the effort and the energy, and also the fact that this needs to be palatable and playable for a massive portion of people, it's entirely possible that Rockstar saw the cliff that they were approaching and decided to divert rather than nosedive off of it. I do think it's also more likely than not that this game probably won't be like the GTAs of old, and it probably won't really live up to what a lot of people are hoping it is, but, you know, for the sake of those
Rockstar better hope that it does.
of you who are massive GTA fans and who love the other games, I do hope this is good, and I do hope it meets your expectations somewhere, somehow. I just think
I do too. I hope it meets and exceeds your expectations. But I am telling you to prepare for it not to.
A lot of modern writers across the board, even when it comes to game development, are just so much more focused on the self-insertion and the diversity and all of these representation quotas rather than actually making something fun and telling a good story.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's more likely than not that a huge portion of these delays are caused by the fact that this game probably needed to be rewritten quite a lot due to where we're at now culturally.
Absolutely,
it's obviously
indeed.
very disappointing to know that they went down the wrong path to begin with, but you can't really blame people for trying to do a course correction when they realize. So in the end, although Rockstar seems to have fallen down the same woke hole that other studios have fallen into as well, here is to hoping that they are able to successfully dig themselves out. Now on that note, and before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder to check out Opus Clip using the link in the description. I love Opus Clip. This is one of the, best pieces of software, I guess if you can call it that I have used in a very long time, and I do genuinely use them, and I genuinely made a shorts channel because of them. So if this is something that you are interested in, if you want to be better at editing and all this type of thing, absolutely
Well, check them out, guys,
now,
if you want.
I open the floor to all of you. What do you all think?
I don't know, maybe I will, maybe I won't.
Read your comments on this one because
Let's
you
put it-
gamers are in
Let's put it this way. If I suddenly have an explosion of shorts, I think you know what I checked out.
intense human beings. Are you on my side of this where you think they probably went down the
Yes, gamers are very intense human beings because it is something that we hold very dear to the core existence of our being, I would assume. And it's honestly, we might check out the comments here because I'm sure there's probably a lot of people who have a lot of things to say.
woke road and then had to course correct because they knew it wasn't going to fly? Do you think that no, they probably have been the same as always and they actually haven't gotten political at all? What do
I
you
think that's
of the
unlikely.
trailers? Do you think that that first trailer was very female orientated? Do you think that it was intentional, trying to signal what kind of game this is? Or do you think that it was just, hey, we're going to
Oops,
show
sorry,
you the
didn't mean to
woman
hit
in
my
this
mic.
one and the man in the next one? What do you think of all of the leftism and the progressivism that Rockstar has participated in over the years? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? Do you think that it really means nothing and maybe we're reading too much into it? What do you make of the delays? What do you think is causing those delays? What do you generally make of this?
What I make of it is I think that Rockstar has fired the people that made Rockstar or asked to step down. And I think that, like every other big AAA developer that has brand recognition, they are cashing in that brand recognition in order to predate upon their audience to give them the absolute bare minimum, lowest possible product in order to stay financially viable. It is crazy to me that we are saying that Rockstar put $1 billion into the development of a game. I think that's crazy. I don't even think that like 100 million for an investment on a game is in any way indicative of its success or good. I don't know. I think there's too much money being thrown at games nowadays and too many fingers in the pie and not enough creatives having their own lead and their own team.
Issue overall. As always, if you have made it this far in the video, congratulations. I always like having you along for the full ride. If you are not subscribed already and you would like to see more of me and more of this kind of content, feel free to subscribe to the channel as well as leaving this video a like and a comment because I do read the majority of them and I like hearing your feedback. Like I always say, my wonderful little chickadee people, I hope you stay safe and well and make good choices, and I will see your beautiful little faces in the next video.
Yay! Oh, nope, we don't want that. Thank you so much, Sydney. Let's see what some of these comments are saying. Does anyone else remember Rockstar made Manhunt? I remember that. We got Sydney Watson video on GTA 6 before GTA 6. GTA used to offend everyone equally. That was the point. Imagine. Let's see. Rockstar is the same. Put out previous. Wait, Rockstar is not the same company. Yeah, I mean, that's true. Wokeness destroys everything. Typical. Being disappointed by entertainment, food, healthcare, politician companies. What's left? I mean, it seems like a lot of people are going into the kind of the same direction. Exactly kind of what I would expected. Not gonna lie. I don't know. I think there's a good argument to be made that it's probably not going to be good because of the direction that the company's been going. I think we can probably make some good assessments and some good assumptions.